Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are super excited to be here with you today. It has been a while, but we are super excited to be here for the Comerica Business Sense Boot Camp. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you are a boot camp veteran, hey girl, hey, and hey to all the fellows who join us as well. We are so excited. And yes, for every single segment, you're going to hear me say, I'm excited for every single topic. Once again, just like you did last season. But this season two, is going to be a little bit different. I'm excited to bring you this conversation. Today, we are focusing on mental health and entrepreneurship. We are kicking off this particular series from a solid foundation, from a really strong foundation. And before we dive in, we want to just talk a little bit about what this Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp is, why it's even a thing, and really what you can expect from us as your hosts, which I'll introduce myself to you in a minute for those of you who are new to me. But we really want you to know exactly what the reason behind the boot camp. So I will start by introducing myself. Greetings, everyone. My name is Margot Blair. I am a business developer and the founder of Discover Her Worldwide Incorporated. We help women build their businesses on a solid foundation by creating personal and professional development experiences such as these. But over the last few years, we've really focused on creating experiences such as conferences. And our conference is called the Woman in Action Experience. And we mainly cater to entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, as well as formerly incarcerated women. And again, the vision is really to be able to put together dynamic experiences that puts people in the room who wouldn't normally connect. As well, we again are focusing on developing the foundations for women across the board. And so through these boot camp experiences, we know that COVID-19 affected communities across the globe. With this, we are excited to bring season two of our business boot camp series. In partnership with Comerica Bank, Discover Her Worldwide Incorporated will be hosting 12 segments of the COVID Relief Business Development Boot Camp for women business owners, subject matter experts, and nonprofit leaders as we figure out how we're going to be navigating this post-COVID world together. And so without further ado, I have to take a second to give recognition to one of the women that's helping really make this boot camp a thing. How is this even possible? And we wouldn't be able to do that without our partnership with Comerica Bank. So Summer, hey, welcome back.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Thank you. So I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. We did so many boot camps last year, and it was more on the defense when it came to COVID last year. And it was just like, oh my gosh, we got to cram all this information in. And we were kind of out of breath at the end of the year, trying to get everything in. Yeah, so this year we're not on the defense. We're kind of on the offensive at this point because everybody's kind of had the understanding of what their business can do with COVID, or what their careers are doing with COVID. And so we're kind of in it now, and it's kind of mellowed out. We're kind of riding the wave, see what's going on. And I'm very excited for this because to be honest, this is one of the best times to be a Black owned business in the time that I've ever been a Black owned business, time that most of us have. I mean, it's one of the best times to kind of, it's not a sink or swim, but it's just like, let's spread our wings a little bit more, see what else we can do. So I am excited to do this. It's a boot camp series, which is a concentrated version of our business sense model, which is typically a 6-month program that has hours and hours and hours of almost like university-like education on how to be a business. So this particular model is a concentrated version of all of the things, the tips and tricks that you need to know in order to be a successful business, and is information given to you from a bank, which is fantastic because this is all information that we look at on a day-to-day basis. This is credit, this is financial literacy, this is mental health, this is everything we see. There's like, how can we form this fantastic business around whatever product or service or support you need, but how can we make a business better? And every business wants to be better, no matter where your point is, where your baseline is. So this is just an exciting way to do it. I am so happy that we can do it with you, Margot, and Discover Her Worldwide, and bring this information out to the people who need it and the people who may not think they need it. I mean, everybody might need that one little golden nugget of information. There's like, oh, I didn't remember that, or that's something that I've never really considered for my business. So excited to be here and happy to answer any questions in this day and age of business during COVID. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we see more of you who are joining us, and we're super excited for that. So I'm just going to quickly reintroduce myself as well. I'm going to take some time to really set the foundation for what we all can expect from this boot camp. And again, we are really catering to the entrepreneurs, the nonprofit founders, and the leaders of impact across these communities, but we are here based in Phoenix, Arizona. So greetings, everyone. I am Margot Blair, and I am the founder of Discover Her Worldwide, a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered here again in Phoenix, Arizona. Our mission is designed to bridge generational gaps between diverse groups of women. And pre-Rona, we would do this through in-person, personal, and professional development experiences such as conferences, trainings, and seminars. But we figured out how to navigate this post-COVID world. And in partnership with Comerica Bank, we have brought you all the Comerica Business Sense Boot Camp experiences. We are going to be gathering for 12 different segments throughout this year from now until October. And the beautiful thing about this is that we are going to be having discussions on a number of different aspects around business development, around entrepreneurship, around work-life harmony, and several other topics that are super essential for business owners to build their businesses on a solid foundation and to make sure they are taking care of themselves. And what better way to start than this conversation we're having today on mental health and entrepreneurship. But before we dive in, we want to make sure that we go over a few housekeeping details. And so everyone, go ahead and take out your phone. Summer and I are going to pose. Okay, good. I hope you caught that. If not, please don't catch us while we're talking. But nonetheless, we wanted you to take this picture so you can put it in your pocket and keep it forever. No, we are wanting to make sure that you are sharing these experiences with your community, with your network. And we want you to, as we're going through the conversation today on mental health and entrepreneurship, as well as the other conversations, that you make sure to be active with us. When you talk at us, we talk back. And it's really important that you share any nuggets that you receive, any gems, any words of wisdom, anything that resonates with you. We want you to run over to your preferred social media platform and share those gems. But when you share, please be sure to use the hashtag Comerica Business Sense Boot Camp Series. I know it's long, but when you do that, we will be able to see each of those posts, and you may get a shout out. But with that, we get to see what were your major takeaways. We get to see how this is impacting you and what it's doing for your business so that we can continue to bring you dynamic conversations. And so we will continue to say, share with your network, share, and invite anyone to this conversation who you know needs to be in the room. As well, if you haven't done so already, be sure to grab your notepad and pen. And again, be sure to share. So as we are preparing for our speaker, I want us to take a little bit of time, Summer. Let's talk about the first season of the boot camp. I really want everyone who's tuning in and who's going to be either catching the replay to really understand the importance of the boot camp. So I'm going to take a few moments to go over some of the topics from the last segment, and then I want you to share your feedback. And if any of them, as I'm sharing, stand out to you, just cut me off. And I want you to share like some of your major takeaways, because I know from our conversations, you really loved a lot of these conversations. They were all great, but there were several of them that really stood out. So from season one, as I said, we had 12 different conversations for business leaders. And the first, we started this with a good friend of mine who is a business attorney, Lauren Morgan, and we talked about structuring your business for success. And we said, so you think you want to start or run a nonprofit? And the reason why we started off focusing on nonprofits, because that's one of my sweet spots. I have a passion for nonprofit business owners because what we continue to see is that nonprofit founders are not running their businesses like real businesses. And we have to get out of that mindset. That is a myth. You have to be profitable. You have to, in order to make your impact, you have to be a profit. You have to be generating profit. And so we definitely took the time to go through a number of different topics, from selecting your board, selecting quality board members at that, and then just some other fundamental components of building a solid business. We then had a conversation with Felicia Davis, another one of great friends of mine, on becoming a well-branded leader, and she gave us tons of gems in that conversation. And then we continued and we talked about project management. And that conversation was so weighty. We had to have two separate segments on that. We started off talking about your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, and how to establish those. As well, we talked about corrective action plans, which are super key for business leaders. And then we went on, again, continuing the conversation on project management, where we discussed workflows and processes for your specific business model. And I think that one was kind of cool because we kind of got to do like a few on-site coaching with some of the business leaders who asked them questions. So that was cool. And then one of my mentors came on and we talked about strategic planning and knowing the story behind your numbers. And that was with Shamaya Lodge. And again, that one was a really, really good conversation. For those of you who have been connected to me or participated in my business boot camp called Profitable Founder Academy, you know, we talk about this really heavily. And again, knowing the story behind your numbers for business owners is super key. When we're talking about partnerships, when we're talking about the impact, when we're talking about generating profit, you need to know the story behind your numbers. And then continuing on, we talked about the fundamentals of finance with yours truly, Comerica Bank, myself and several other leaders from Comerica Bank. And again, that was a really powerful conversation. I'll pause here because Summer, we talked about financial analysis, but having a healthy relationship and mindset with money. Can you talk a little bit about why did we even want to have that conversation? Why was that important?
Yeah. Well, it's so important to financial mindset. We're not born with it. Okay. That's something that's learned. That's something that's passed down. And for a lot of us, we didn't get that. We didn't get that passed down. We got fight or flight. We got pay your bills if you can, eat. But we didn't understand what money can do for us other than keep the lights on. And when you look at some of the statistics and look at the mental health of business owners, you see that unfortunately, African-American business owners are dead last when it comes to net profits, when it comes to scaling your business, when it comes to just being larger than what we see. And it's not because we don't want to. It's not because we don't have the capabilities. That has nothing to do with it. It's a lot of it is because we don't understand the function of money. So when you have a mental capacity and understanding that it's not going to be possessions that make you money, it's going to be that mental focus and the understanding of money is an actual tool to get you to whatever your goal is, opposed to having money being the goal, then we can understand how to run our business. So that's all mental. I can give you $1 million right now, but if you spend it all on bags, shoes, cars, and then your assets are depreciated, that $1 million doesn't turn into 10 million. That $1 million just turned into 100,000. So what you do with the money that comes in your hands doesn't have anything to do with your hands. It has everything to do with what you think that money will do. So when you have a good relationship with money, when you understand what the power of the finances that are in your hands, whether they're $5 or $500,000, whatever you do with those funds, how do you multiply it? How do you make that make sense for you, your family, the generations behind you? Because remember, this isn't just about you. This isn't about just the day and age in 2021. This is how you're establishing not only your name, but your business, your legacy, things that are going to happen and take place so your children don't have to do the things that you have to do right now. So the mental mindset is far beyond whatever you think that goal of finances. If you say, I want to make 6 figures this year, that's great. What are those 6 figures going to do? What is the 6 figure? Is it 101,000 or is it 999,000? There's a big gap. So having that focus, having that tailored focus to who you are and what you want to do and what you want to leave behind, because we only have a few years to do this. So getting it together and understanding where that mental capacity is going to be weighs heavily on what your outcome is going to be. So having a good relationship with money is understanding that tool and utilizing it as a function it needs to be. But yeah, we will dig deeper when it comes to understanding the mental capacity of finances, definitely.
This is so, no, like you just threw several hooks. And but it's key though, it's really important that we understand this again, because while we're having these conversations, so many people they didn't have these conversations around the dinner table. Majority of them, right? And we're not just talking about black and brown individuals. We're talking any person who would identify as a low to moderate income household. These conversations just weren't the norm, right? Not only were these conversations just not the norm, these conversations, when it comes to money, they've been kind of taboo in a lot of cultures. And so again, that's something that we're demystifying. You know, we're debunking those myths, because we have to have these conversations. We have to show up and not only have to have these conversations with our families, but with our friends. And that's something that is super key. Two things I want to share to your point, Summer, is number one, when we were having this conversation on money, I had an accountability group where we would show up weekly and have these conversations. And it was not just, okay, how much money did you make this week, right? Whether you believe that's invasive or not, that can honestly hold you accountable in many degrees. However, we were having conversations on, okay, well, I want to write a book this month. Okay, great. Well, how many pages did you write this week? Like we were all up in each other's businesses. And as friends, as accountability partners, we gave each other permission to speak into each other's lives and call us out when we were underperforming. And one of my great girlfriends who is with us today, Sasha Simmons, she's a phenomenal speaker. She talks about not being mediocre, having no mediocre friends. And of course, that's being subpar, that's playing below the pretty much not functioning and operating in your purpose. And so with that conversation, it's really important that we understand where we're going with these conversations, not just around finance, but around these other conversations. Again, in season 1, Summer, we talked about systems, we talked about sales, we talked about outsourcing and hiring for the team, right? We talked about sales consistency. And, you know, a few people were like, wait, why are we having 2 different conversations on sales? And I want to point this out because, again, this goes back to what we're talking about. The first conversation on sales was around simplifying your sales process, which was essentially with Tish Times. And we talked about how do you sell, not being afraid to make that and get people to understand the value of your offer, whether it's a service, a product, and we're talking low ticket products as well as high ticket products, 4 figures, 5 figures, 6-figure investments, and helping them understand the value. But this other conversations on sales consistency was with a good friend of mine, Troy. And it really came down to mindset. We really weren't even talking about money. And I think that was really, really transformational for a lot of the people on the call, because where people are. Again, we didn't have these conversations around money around the table. And so people are trying to chase what you said. Well, I want to make six figures. Okay, and when you make that, what are you gonna do, right? Like six figures is not the end all and the be all. And depending on the conversation you're having, in some people's perspective, six figures is still not going to really move the needle for you. And when you get there, you will learn that. And that's not to derail anyone from trying to aspire, like to try and acquire that six figures. Do it. Right? Simplify your process and achieve that vision and achieve that goal. However, when we're talking around the sales consistency, it came to belief, it came to impact, and it came to understanding your own value. And so then we continued through that series talking about collaboration, and we ended it on a really good conversation with Pollyanna, who is a ghostwriter and for Forbes, and we talked about side hustling and not quitting your day job, right? And that was a really powerful conversation to end on, simply because this facade of you have to be an entrepreneur in this day and age. Summer will tell you, number one, you can do it both. Sasha will tell you, number two, you can do it both. And Suma will also tell you, you can do it both. So you don't have to be like me and jump off the deep end and make this your lifestyle. Because let's be clear, entrepreneurship is not for the weak. It is that. No, but part of the reason why we wanted to go over some of the conversations from season 2 is they're going to be better this season. They were great, but they're going to get better. And we're starting today with mental health and entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay, I know tons of people in the mental health world, but I'm gonna call my girl Suma. Number one, there's been so many times we've been trying to get together to say, hey, like we're gonna do this, and we're gonna find a time, find a topic to discuss, and it didn't align. But that didn't stop us, and we're here, like 5 years later? No, but we're here and we're having this conversation today on mental health and entrepreneurship. And so if you're ready, like let's just go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, let's go.
Hey, Suma. It has been so long. It's great to see your beautiful face.
Thank you. Yours too. Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to take a second and just introduce you to all of those who are tuning into us today and watching the replay. For those of you who do not know Suma, she is the licensed mom. Suma is a licensed professional counselor and behavioral health professional. She is well-versed in substance abuse, serious mental health illness, and trauma. Suma is a trusted advocate for mental health in urban communities. And as an entrepreneur, she helps establish behavioral health companies by providing clinical oversight, training, and therapeutic efficacy. This is super key. But Suma has been a pillar in the mental health community for over a decade, you guys. She has obtained her independent license, trauma certifications, and is a trained clinical supervisor. If you haven't gotten it yet, Suma is the GOAT in the mental health space. And as a statewide clinical director of a mental and behavioral health company, she oversees the day-to-day clinical observation of the clinical department and company-wide development of trauma-informed care. Even if you don't know what I'm saying right now, Suma owns a behavioral health consulting company which connects individuals with all behavioral health needs to include, but not limited to, counseling, group home establishment, supervision, assessment, billing, credentialing, and so much more. Suma spends time facilitating and participating in mental health discussions such as these across the Valley and nationwide, spreading awareness, education, and busting through barriers and mental health myths. But not only that, she is an amazing mother and like, I think the sharpest little girl in the world. And so Suma, we are so excited to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for that intro. I'm super, super excited to be here today. And when you reached out to me, I was like, oh yes, there is so much that could be discussed when it comes to entrepreneurship and mental health. mental health by itself, but combining the two, oh my goodness, I was like, yes, this is a discussion that needs to happen. So thank you for creating this environment, this space, and this discussion type.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're gonna go ahead and just get straight to some of these questions. We have some people waiting, we have some questions submitted, but I'm gonna start with my question first because I'm the host. So, no, once again, Suma, thank you so much for joining us. And having this question on mental health and entrepreneurship, I think is super key. But I want to share it from my perspective. The work that I started doing when I first got into entrepreneurship was in the personal development space. And the work that I did focused on helping young girls and women overcome ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And I ended up creating a number of personal development books, guides, resources. And so I really want to ask you, Suma, why is this conversation of mental health important? Number one, but specifically, why is it important for entrepreneurs to have this discussion?
Mental health is a very difficult topic to discuss sometimes, for especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. The stress levels that comes along with becoming an entrepreneur is extremely difficult. And like you said earlier, it's not for the weak, right? When you're going through entrepreneurship, you are getting doors slammed in your face, windows closed, gates closed, and that can be very hard on one's self-esteem, especially if you're entering into entrepreneurship in regards to something that's your passion. Usually when you do entrepreneurship, it's because you're good at it, but also because you have an extreme passion for it. So when other people do not share the same passion, or when other people do not understand your passion and where you're trying to go with it, and they are saying no to you, it can be really hard on your self-esteem. Depression is very, very real when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? And it's difficult for other people to really understand why one individual will put themselves in that arena to have to be exposed to being told no so often, right? It's not something you get to interview for, and you get the job and you have a list of things of what you're expected to do, and you sign a job description. You're going in there and you're learning so much on the fly. And for one's self-esteem, it can be very debilitating. And so when it comes to mental health, you have to be extremely mentally strong. You have to be prepared for the no answers, and you have to be mentally fit to enter into this kind of lifestyle. So that's why it's so important to have that understanding when you decide to enter into that arena.
And I think that's super key that you mentioned all of those things. So when we lead into these spaces, specifically as founders, what resources are actually out there regarding mental health?
There isn't a lot. And I think that's a lot of the problem that happens, is that you're constantly going, you're constantly pushing, especially if it's your entrepreneurship is your full-time job, and maybe in some cases your side hustle. You're constantly going, you're constantly moving, right? And your mind is on the fly 24/7 in the middle of the night. You don't get the opportunity or even stop to even take a breath to participate in self-care. You don't always take, because you can't, because if you participate in self-care and you take a break, you're thinking that your entire everything's going to fall apart, right? And you have this mindset that when you enter into entrepreneurship, that you have to hustle 24/7. If you're hustling 24/7, where does your mental health come in? When do you actually take a break? When is the actual self-care? So you don't get those opportunities. So there's not a lot of resources, and people don't tell you that when you enter into entrepreneurship, that your mental health is strained. No one talks about that part. They talk about the ugly, door slamming in your face, you being told no, but they don't talk about the mental strain that you have to go through to be an entrepreneur. So you don't have those resources created.
And that's so important. And there was something that you mentioned in that conversation where in what you shared, understanding that, you have to do everything. You have to wear all the hats. And again, for those of you who are tuning in and you heard me say this before, set up your systems. Set up your systems. And again, this conversation of setting up your systems, I want to add this to this conversation, Suma, because this goes directly to mental health and taking off all of these hats that you are clinging to and wanting to wear, right? It is noble, but you can reach burnout if you try and wear all of these hats. And so this conversation around setting up your systems it's connected to outsourcing or hiring team members. Before you even consider hiring a team member, you have to have a system established for what you're going to be hiring for, or the role you're going to be hiring. And what I mean by this is, if you are a service-based business, who's sending your email, or how are you going to be sending your emails? How are you going to be posting on social media? How are you going to be acquiring your clients? Like, there's so many things that go into it. How are you going to be serving your clients, right? There's all of these things that go into it. But when you establish the system to help you automate, and then you make sure that system is established, then you can go and handpick a qualified person to oversee or manage that particular role. But before you, again, can outsource, you have to first be sure that your system is established. And so, just to your point, Suma, of people wearing all these hats, I had to jump in and make that point.
Super. Absolutely. And to speak to that, wearing all these hats, we wear so many different hats, whether you're a mom, you're a friend, you're a child, you're entrepreneur, you're working full time. But where is the hat of Suma? Where is the hat of Summer? Where is the hat of Margot? When are you wearing your own individual hat where you're making that time for yourself? We get so lost in the day-to-day and the shuffle of everything that we forget to put our own hats on, our own care first. And as one of my close friends has said plenty of times, Ebony speaks of, you can't pour from an empty cup. And constantly we are given so much in so many different areas when it comes to entrepreneurship. And if you get to the point where you do have, you're a founder or owner, and you do have staff and employees, that means you're giving to them as well. You're giving to the clients in which you're serving. When are you giving to you? But again, that's not the part that's usually discussed when it comes to entrepreneurship.
And again, all solid points. And I'll speak to that. I think it was 2018, I completely lost myself in my business. I was on the go. Suma, you remember, I was always on the road. I think I was in my doctoral program, failing my doctoral program. Let me be 100% honest. I was failing my doctoral program. I was working almost 50 hours a week at a sober living facility. And again, had the nonprofit, had the for-profit, and was traveling to speak. Mm-hmm. Long pause for a reason. Like there was definitely no self-care. I was pretty much doing everything myself, because when I outsourced and they didn't do it the way I wanted to, I snatched it back and just tried to do it all myself. And exactly how fast I was talking was exactly how fast my life was going. And not only did that impact me as an entrepreneur, I want to share two other things with this. Number one, I didn't know who Margot was outside of Discover Her. I didn't know who Margot was outside of A&B Consulting. I didn't know. I didn't have any hobbies at the time. It just wasn't a thing. But then also, I was not able to make as great of an impact in the life of those I was called to lead, simply because I was trying to be all things to all people and everywhere and on at all times. So please heed this information. Don't just put it in your back pocket. Don't just say, ooh, great segment. Really listen to this advice and this wisdom that Suma is sharing and that we're discussing here on this conversation. Suma, I have to ask this question. Is trauma real? And if so, how do you identify your triggers?
Oh, that's a very great question. Super loaded question. So, trauma is 100% real, right? The difference that trauma plays is what they teach you is that trauma is different for everyone. Two people could see the same exact situation and respond differently. And that's what we have to understand. And we have to respect that. And if you interact with everyone with the understanding that they have been through some traumatic experience way before you, you reduce the possibility of re-traumatization for that person, right? And when you operate under that capacity, you then become a trauma-informed individual. To be able to identify triggers is difficult. Until you truly assess the traumatic experience, until you truly assess and process what you have been through and how that may have impacted your life, you won't be able to identify triggers. Sometimes the trigger is not identifying until you're actually being triggered at that moment. And even then, some people don't even understand what's going on, but like, why is this happening? Because you already put the trauma so far in your subconscious that you don't even realize what's happening. That you don't even realize why something is being said that bothers you so much, or why this particular show upsets you so drastically. Because the situation that has caused that is so far in the back of your mind. You know, a lot of times your body and your mind will shut down during traumatic situations to preserve itself, to protect itself, right? Our bodies do a lot of things to protect itself, right? If you hyperventilate and having a panic attack, your body literally says, oh no, it's too much carbon monoxide in my body, I'm shutting down, and you will literally pass out so that your body can regain itself to start breathing normally again. That's something that also comes from trauma, is panic attacks, anxiety. So being able to understand that trauma is real, and more than likely, every single person that you interact with has been through a trauma of their own. No matter what it is, a car accident, falling off of off a bike, and now they don't want to ride a bike anymore. You know, there's so many things that can be traumatizing to an individual, and you can't operate and think that, well, that wasn't that bad, but it was for that person. We're not in the place to ever think that it's okay to tell someone, that situation wasn't as bad as, or you'll get over it, or it'll pass. It's insensitive, and it's not true. So being able to have that understanding that trauma is real and it's everywhere that you look. Even watching the Twin Towers way back, or watching war, or watching politics, anything can be a traumatic experience. And operating on that mentality will help for you to avoid, like I said, re-traumatizing someone else that you come across. And to learn your triggers is to learn the trauma and to learn and to process it.
Again, I wanted to, rather than jumping straight in, I wanted to give, that, allow that to breathe, allow people to take that in, right? Trauma looks different for different people. We respond differently to different scenarios. It's just a highlight, cliff note version.
Absolutely.
Weird, but thank you for talking about that, because we've seen this, especially the high achieving go-getters, right? My hand is there. I'm okay. I got this. Do you? And again, we see it even if we don't see it. And the other side to this, which we'll just put the pin here, if we want to address it, we can. But as entrepreneurs, fellow entrepreneurs, if I saw Summer going through it, why do we just sit back and say, oh, well, she didn't bring it up to me, so I'm not going to be intrusive. I'm not going to invade her privacy.
Yeah.
Can we, matter of fact, I think we do need to talk about that for a little.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? Because a lot, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking, oh, that's part of the struggle. That's part of it that's going to make you stronger. Those are the situation that's going to drive you, to push you. But yes, it's also going to drive you and push you into depression. It's going to drive you and push you into anxiety, into panic attacks, right? So people don't want to be looked at as being weak when it becomes entrepreneur, because you have to be strong. We said in the beginning, entrepreneurship is not for the weak. So you don't want to discuss, the fact that you're feeling depressed, that you're feeling like you're just not getting anywhere, or you're feeling that you're overwhelmed by doing so many different things to get your business off the ground, that you're anxious, that you're worried, that you feel like that you made a mistake. And that's why no one wants to discuss mental health when it comes to entrepreneurship, because you can't be seen as weak, because you have to be able to be strong to be able to push through this. So nobody wants to talk about it, because that's part of the struggle. That's part of being an entrepreneur, and that's part of the problem.
She said it, not me. She said it, not me. Call somebody, y'all. No, truly, you definitely want to find just a solid group. It could be 2 to 5 people. Shoot, one person, but find somebody that you're willing to share those moments with, and don't try to be too strong. Don't try to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders, because Suma will tell you, we'll get to this later, so don't give this away, but just as a coach has a coach, therapists and counselors are required to have their own mental health professionals. So we'll get to that conversation later, because it's important to have that discussion on how to select and how to find them. But I want to continue on with some of these questions because they're super key. What are the signs of needing to seek professional support around our mental health?
So when you're starting to realize for yourself that you're lacking enjoyment in the things that you once did, is one of the first key signs to look at. When you see that your fire is dwindling, when you're used to going out with your friends and you're starting to isolate, those are key signs. When you're wanting to sleep in more, when you're feeling lethargic, fatigue, those are also key signs to look at. When you're having more physiological symptoms such as stomach aches, headaches, those are things as well as to look at. When you are feeling overwhelmed and your heart is racing, anxiety, when you're starting to feel those kind of things flustering in your body physiologically, those are signs that you need to get checked in. You need to talk to someone. Like Margot said, it could be a friend, it could be a professional, it could be anybody. But when you start to notice those key things in yourself, that is a concern, because all those things are necessary for you to move forward when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? So when you're starting to lack passion, or you're starting to feel the fire burn out for something that you started so strongly with, that is a key to look at. That is something that should be a trigger for you to realize something is just not right.
Again, super, super important. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask this question. I think it's really important for us to really understand this as entrepreneurs and business leaders. What are some ways, how do you identify the right person as your mental health professional? How do you go through that selection process, right? Because I'm picky. So how do we go?
The process is exactly how you would choose a friend, exactly how you would choose a significant other. It's the exact same selection process, right? Mental health therapists or professionals or social workers, we are not the fit for every single person. So the first person you go to may not be the right fit for you, and that's okay. I don't take it to heart. So for me, when I in my practice, when someone wants to speak to me or possibly continue service with me, I offer a 15-minute free consultation moment with them where we talk about different things, the reason why they're entering into clinical services, and we talk to see if we're a good fit. And based on that, they have the opportunity to either schedule with me or not, because sometimes it's not. And you don't want to go through a whole full session and pay a whole copay and that person be not the right fit for you. So you take the opportunity to be able to set aside and say, let me see if they're a good fit. And I've had clients that come to me as look, I've tried it 4 different therapists and it didn't work with them. I'm not sure it's going to work with you either, but I'm going to try it again. And that's the point of just not giving up. So don't feel bad that if you're the first therapist you go to and you just don't feel that connection, it is okay to break up with them, all right? Just like it's okay to break up with that significant other that is not working out with, and that friend that just isn't cutting it. If they're not adding value to your life, remove them. And that includes your therapist too. But don't give up. Find one that fits you. And if that takes 5 or 6 therapists, then that's fine. Try them all on.
Again, super, super key. While we continue this conversation on mental health and entrepreneurship, what are some ways to look for healthy work-life harmony? What are some ways to look for healthy work-life harmony?
So some of the key ways that you can possibly find the balance is when you're starting to see that you are spending a little bit too much time in one area over the other. If you are finding yourself thinking about your home life while you're at work, there's too much going on at home. If you're finding yourself thinking about work while you're at home and supposed to be spending time with family, there's too much going on at work. I operate under having a healthy work-life balance by setting myself to a strict schedule. and I stick to it. I have a schedule where I see clients and when I don't see clients. And that is your time. If you cannot be seen during that time, that's just it. A lot of my clients would say, Suma, you're booked up. I'm like, I'm not opening up any other time. So you get in where you fit in, and that's it. If I have my company clients and they're scheduled to be seen at this time and they can't make it, that's fine. But then you're gonna have to wait until I'm available again. Yeah. Because I had to learn very early on to create that work-life balance, because I had to create boundaries for myself and boundaries for other people, which include my company clients and my practice clients too as well. So they'll book out months in advance just so that they can get on the schedule, and that's okay too. But just knowing that this is what's going to be expected. What I also operate under when we say we wear many hats is that my daughter is given specific time, and this is her time. She knows this is when she has her mommy, and she has me all the time. For that fact, doesn't matter. But she knows mommy is not seeing any clients. Mommy's not taking any meetings. This is your time for mommy, and that is it. And I have the time that I create for myself. So I also give like little tokens that when you get home, when my keys get into that bowl, work is done. I'm not doing anybody's work. I may respond to emails, but your email will not be responded to 11 o'clock at night once I'm sure that my door has been put to bed and I have my own personal time. So once those keys go in the bowl, you just know, don't talk to Suma because she's not responding to you. That's it. So it's making sure that you have something that can trigger your mind that you do that lets you know this part of my life is done. When my daughter gets in my car, it's her time. We have time that I talk to her. So that 20-minute ride, if I get a phone call from work, you're going to have to wait till I get home, because that 20-minute ride is hers. So it's being able to create that kind of a space for yourself and doing what you need to do, whatever token it looks like, whether it's keys, whether it's your ID badge, whether it's you taking your work clothes off. For me, I only got work clothes from the waist up because I'm working from home. So whatever it looks like, when these earrings come off and this necklace come off, work is done for the day. So whatever it looks like for you is being able to create that mental space and that opportunity for yourself to say, oh, I'm done for the day. What does that look like for you? What does it look like when you're done working for entrepreneurship for the day or your daytime for the day? What time are you dedicating to your side hustle? What does that look like? Because at some point you have to stop it so that you can pick on the other hat that you have to wear. What does it look like for you?
Ditto. I know, I truly second that, Suma, and I want to talk about this a little bit further. One of the things that I do, and I actually give my clients the same thing, is being able to schedule their day. And so I talk about from 4:30 a.m. to around 6:30, that is mama time. Like anything going on in the house, do not call me. It's a hard no. That's why the husband is there. He's on daddy duty, whatever. And unless it's an emergency, someone's bleeding, whatever, don't call me. And I say that because I have to set that boundary, because the morning is when I get things done. That's when I'm most efficient and effective. And so I have to command my day. I have to be able to show up. And so from that, that 2.5 hours, I'm making sure that I'm praying. I'm making sure that I'm in the word. I'm making sure that I'm meditating, exercising, walking, whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm good. That is that time in the morning. And then same thing, there's certain days of the week that I schedule specific things. And if it's not on that day, it won't happen. And I want to talk about this again, because this plays into the role of my mental health. Because as I said, I was on all the time and I didn't compartmentalize effectively. And so another way to look at this for those of you who are, well, how do I actually do that? And how do I actually schedule? Professional development days are my Monday. I don't take clients. I really don't even take calls on Monday mornings. And when I say professional development, that's researching anything new in my industry, all the trends, all of that. That is what I'm doing on Mondays. I was going to say on professional development day, because that's what it's called. But nonetheless, on Mondays, that's specifically for that. However, I do give 1 hour for inquiry calls. And it's 1 hour for me taking a break to say, hey, okay, if you're interested, we can talk for 30 minutes. But that's only on Mondays and not any of the other days of the week. Mm-hmm. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, those are my client days. If it's not a Tuesday and Thursday, I'm not on with my clients, period. That's just what it is. And so it looks a little bit different because I also have content days on Tuesdays. Why is this important? Because I'm only getting dressed once. No, I'm kidding. But that's really how I look at it. It's like, what all can I get done? And I chunk. So I'm batch recording content on those Tuesdays, but I'm also meeting with my clients on Tuesdays. I have my academy clients and students on Thursdays, and that's really what this is. In this season, when we have the boot camp, that's the only thing that happens Wednesdays, and I go back to the house and I'm with my baby all day. Like, that's really what this conversation is. And part of the reason why I wanted to break down my particular schedule is really understanding what that looks like for you. So for us, for me, we have those scheduled days, and I'm only in the office on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And that's it. Well, sorry, y'all, I'm here today. But again, that's for this particular segment for the boot camp. And so I really encourage you, as we're having this conversation on mental health, and specifically this part of the conversation on scheduling, figure out what works for you. Don't try and be unrealistic. If you have to be in the office more times, well, great. Do as Suma said. And when your keys go in the bowl or hung on the wall or wherever you put your keys, make sure you are off and do not pick up the phone.
No, and that adds to your mental health. When you have a structure and you have a schedule, that adds to the success and the environment for you to create a great mental space, right? When your mind and your body knows what to expect, when others around you know what to expect, then you are able to operate in a healthy mental capacity because you have that structure out. So that reduces anxiety. That reduces you feeling overwhelmed. That reduces you feeling, depression, because you know what you have to do and what you're expecting, right? So you feel like you're getting stuff done because you're allotting the amount of time that's necessary. So that adds to your ability to have a healthy mental health environment.
And to that point, I guess I can share, since I shared the schedule, I can share the end of my day with that too. To that last point is understanding that at like 4, so my workday ends at 5. At 4:45 every day, my alarm will go off. That last 15 minutes, I'm saying, okay, we're done. I'm actually not working after that. I'm preparing. Okay, what didn't I get finished? That goes on the next day I'm in the office. And then 5 o'clock, I'm on the road back home. And so I just wanted to add that last piece too, is giving yourself that time, that cushion to not just keep working until that last marker, but to effectively plan your days and your schedules. And so reviewing in the morning what you have to do for the day, but then at the end of your day saying, okay, checking off, okay, these are the things that I accomplished, this needs to get done, but it's moving over. Don't allow yourself to keep working to get those things done, because you won't do it effectively anyway. So Suma, thank you so much for that, because I think that's super key. I want to also ask you this question. What are some ways we can cultivate support and community in the area of mental health? What does that even look like?
So creating the space when it comes to mental health, you want to make sure that you have your village, as I like to call it, your support group, individuals that you can trust, individuals that are going to be honest with you and keep it real. And so that those are the ones that can recognize when something is just not right with you, right? And when they feel comfortable enough to be able to come to you and say, hey, Suma, what's going on? You're a little snappy today. I'm not sure what this is, but something's off and I don't like it. Who can recognize that in you, right? And also create the space where you have different individuals for different parts of your life, right? If you're working a full-time job, have someone that, can relate to having, working full-time, who can relate to the type of industry that you're working in. If it's entrepreneurship, someone that you can talk to about the struggles of entrepreneurship and what you're going through, who's going to be honest with you and give you the raw ins and outs of it. If it's being a parent, what does that look like? Have your parent friends. I have different types of support group depending on what area of my life is struggling, right? I have my mommy friends that I go to, that I talk to when I'm having difficulties. I have my therapist friends, my clinical friends that I go to that, have struggles with. And then I have my entrepreneurship friends. So I have different friends that I go to depending on what area of my life that I'm having a hard time. And you have to be honest with yourself and be honest with them so that you can get the help that you need. When you're sugarcoating things or you're keeping things on the low because you don't want to look as, as being the person who's having difficulties or the person who's, you know, being seen as being weak, then you're not going to get the support that you actually need. So much we're wearing a cape so often that when you actually need help, people don't realize that you need help anymore because you're so busy always being strong in all these areas that you don't know how to be vulnerable. Avoid that. I've done it, and I did it for far too long, and it is exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the alleys. It was exhausting, and I had to be able to create myself where I can feel comfortable being vulnerable. And that's when I had to realize that these different areas of my life, I needed to be able to have people to go to. You can have just one person. That's fine. But when you have that person is busy, who do you go to? So you need to create a network of emotional support, an emotional network. You have your social network, you have your network for work, for business. Where's your emotional network? Why don't we have one of those? If you don't have an emotional network, that means you're not caring to your emotional well-being. We're caring to our professional well-being, our business well-being. We're caring to our social well-being, but why are we not caring to our mental health well-being? And that is because we don't have a mental emotional network that is there for us. Because one person can't be it. If they're busy, if they're caught up in traffic or whatever, you can't rely on just one person. Create an environment, create a network, create a village. That's how you're going to be able to make sure that's being met.
So good, Suma. So good. We have some more questions. Are you good to keep them coming?
Keep on.
Keep going. So when I try to find time to get better in health and wellness, it takes up so much of my day. Whether we're talking about meal planning, getting a workout in, or what have you. And I know other business owners experience the same thing. So do you have any health hacks for busy professionals in terms of meal exercises or what have you?
Yeah, so for me, I try to get an exercise maybe twice a week if I'm lucky. And I create that environment for me when it's my downtime. And if you operate thinking that it's part of your mental health break, then build it into your schedule. You can build in meditation into your schedule. You can build in meal prep into your schedule. If you can build in business meetings all day, you can build in, running to get errands completed, for this job or that job, or you're going to this meeting. If you can build those kind of things into your day, then you can absolutely build in time for yourself. And don't ever say, well, I'm so busy, I'm too tired. Yeah, people tell me that all the time. I'm too tired, I'm too busy to have time for myself. I'm like, how is that possible? If you have time to do all these other things, how are you possibly telling me that you're too busy to make time for yourself? And sometimes that takes me sitting down with them and going over their schedule and be like, look, you have time here. You have time right here. What time do you go to bed? 11 o'clock. So then I suggest at 10 o'clock, you start shutting down. 10 o'clock, you meditate. 10 o'clock, you work out. I work out sometimes at 10 o'clock at night. I go for a walk for 15 minutes at night. Whatever that looks like, there is time. When you're in bed laying down and you're scrolling through your phone and you're looking at social media right before you go to bed, there goes another 15, 30 minutes that you could have did something else with. So there's really not any excuse to say that you don't have time, because we all have time. And if you feel like you don't, that means you're not making it.
You said something real key here. When you go to bed, you're laying in the bed and you're scrolling on social. That is so toxic. And I'm going to walk this out. And Suma, feel free to jump in before we go to the next question. When we're talking about just laying in the bed, all you are doing is consuming what's ever there. And majority of the time you fall asleep, whether you fall asleep and your phone's in your hand and it falls out or whatever the case is. That's the last thing that you consume for the day. Like, I really want us to understand that. And then simultaneously, you wake up the next morning. Well, I don't, my phone's not right here, but the first thing that we do, how many likes did I get overnight in the 3 hours that you slept? Or how many people commented on my post on Facebook in the 2 hours that you slept? Because
That's the newspaper. Social media in the morning is the newspaper. What I miss, so it overwhelms you sometimes, even subconsciously. You don't always realize the power that it has over you in your subconscious as you're drifting off to sleep, right? When you're supposed to be relaxing. Even me, I sometimes will scroll through social media before bed, but what I do is that when I start dozing off, probably like 30 minutes before my actual bedtime, because yes, I have a bedtime. We all should have a bedtime. When I'm getting ready to go to my bedtime, 30 minutes before that, my phone alerts me and says, bedtime ready. So I have it literally set in my phone to let me know, Suma, start winding down, is getting ready for your bedtime. So phone is put down. I'm not responding to nobody. I may roll over in the middle of the night to check for text messages because I'm usually kind of on call for work or stuff, but that's getting shut down. And my phone lets me know. So again, it's about having a schedule, shutting stuff down when you need to. So that 30 minutes is for me to get my mind right, relax, and decompress and woosah, and then nicely drift off to sleep. You don't need to be reading about somebody's problems on social media right before you go to sleep and then wake up, be mad at somebody next to you because of something that happened. That's nothing to do with nobody. So no, I don't need that kind of stress. Relax.
And I think that's key. And so first of all, I thought that I was one of the only ones who sets alarm in their phones. I have alarms throughout my entire day. Times that tell me to focus. I think and it's scheduled at a specific time. And one that I had to set years ago, I think I've had the same alarms in my phone for going on like 2-3 years now, going on 4 years now, which is the interesting thing about this is I had to set an alarm in my phone a few years ago to eat lunch. Like that's how busy in quotes, right? Ineffective, but busy I was at the time. I was skipping meals, like, and I was just so locked into what I was doing. And so the interesting thing now, 11:41 every day, or 11:40 every day, my alarm will go off telling me to eat lunch. The funny thing is now at like 11:38, 11:39, I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. Ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, and so now it's ingrained because I put it on a schedule. And again, in the beginning, I had to have that constant reminder because I would skip it like, oh, it's lunch already? Mm-hmm. Yes, it is, sweetie. And now, again, I get that sensation like, oh, I'm hungry before my alarm goes off. And it's clockwork. Every time I look up, I'm like, dang, really? Like, I got 3 minutes. Go, girl, go get your food ready. And so I wanted to share that piece. Just number one, what you said, I didn't even think to share that initially, but I think that's super key. If that's what you have to do, figure out what works for you. And don't think that because you're having to go that extra mile, that it's not worth it. It is your mental health, your sanity, your peace of mind is so, so worth it. And you will thank yourself later.
Because I've gone I still go plenty of times missing meals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I done lost the entire day. I didn't eat. And I'm so busy that I forget to eat sometimes. And then I remember later on when I make up for it later on with a whole lot of calories. But it's being able to still create that kind of environment and that space for you that you are remembering to take care of yourself throughout the day. So that's a good plan. I love my calendar. Everything is on there. If I don't have my phone, I don't know what I would do.
Well, yeah, no, let's not talk about that because then we really gonna put myself on the chopping.
Not talk about anxiety and stress, okay? In the entrepreneur world, that would lose my mind.
No, if it's not in my phone, I won't remember.
It's not happening.
And then this whole mom life situation, I'm like, ooh, I had a really sharp memory before this life, and I'm like, I just came in the room. What the heck was I in here for? I leave and then I remember.
That's how it happens.
That's a whole nother conversation. We have a few more questions and I think these ones are really, really good. So this other question is, what are some ways I can implement wellness and mental health into my business culture? I think that's a really good question. That's an audience question. What are some ways I can implement wellness and mental health into my business culture?
Yeah, so that is creating a space that understanding how does mental health and wellness actually play a role in what you're doing as far as entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. For me, it's very easy because behavioral health is what I do for a living, right? So it's already built into what I do. But how does mental health play a role in being a baseball player? How does it play a role in being a poet? How does mental health play a role in what you're trying to achieve, whether it's a full-time job or your entrepreneurship or your side hustle? How does mental health factor into it? And trust me, it always does. Mental health plays a role in every aspect of your life, whether you realize it at that moment or not. So it's understanding, what is this playing for me? Is this causing me anxiety? Is this causing me a high level of stress? So how can I intervene here to ensure that my mental health is at an all-time high and where it needs to be substantial to be able to provide and to produce adequate work? What does that look like? Is it taking breaks? I have an Apple Watch. My watch would tell me, remember to breathe. Hey, sit down and breathe. It gives me 1 minute to take however many breaths, and it calculates it for me in and out and gives me my pulse. So that's built into my day. How are you building into your day the moments to take wellness and mental health into consideration? And if you're not, then you need to reevaluate your day. Whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 15 minutes, whatever it may look like. Working through lunch is not a positive way. But if you're going to work through lunch, that's fine. Then you're ending your day early. You're not going to work through lunch and then still stay to 5. Then your day is ended early. So it's being able to understand how can that be a factor into your life, and how can that possibly be a trigger into your work life that it causes you to burn out. It causes you to not like what you're doing any longer because it's not adding satisfaction to you anymore. So for me, it's being able to create that space and building into your day the mental health breaks into your wellness, and how that will look like for you in a particular industry that you are going into or participating in. Because every industry has mental health.
It does.
I think psychology is actually a mandatory class in all college levels. Everyone has to take at least one psychology class as a mandatory gen ed. So for that to let you know that no matter what industry you decide to go into, psychology is going to play an important role into that.
Yes. Yes, and I think that's super key. I think now it's not just psychology, it's psychology and sociology, which again, the study of people and the study of self. Super, super, super key. And it does make all the difference, even have that introductory information. And then from there, you can continue to advance your own knowledge and education, both academically and then on your own time. I think that's super, super key. The last question that we have, and we're just going to then open up to the audience. So if you have questions before I ask this last question, I want you to prepare yourself. For those of you who are joining us on Facebook, if you have a question for Asuma, go ahead and drop that in the comments. And then the audience who's with us on Zoom, if you have a question, you can either find under more, you can raise your hand, you can put your hand up, or you can pop yourself off mute when we ask. Before we just wrap it up for today, because this segment has been super, super informative and transformational for, I know, a number of key people. But before we do that, the last question that I have is, how do I offer support to my employees that are showing signs of mental disturbance without making them feel alienated? I'm going to ask that question again, because this is super key for us all to understand. How do I offer support to my employees that are showing signs of mental disturbance without making them feel alienated?
That is an extremely important question. I have been in the behavioral health field for well over 10 years, but I have been a manager, and now being a statewide director for over 6 years now. So I've been supervising and managing people for majority of that 10 years in my field, the 11 years in my field now. I've been managing. And for me, I create an environment, I have an open door policy. My door at work is never, ever closed. And the same way I treat my clients is the same way I treat my staff. If they want to come in and talk about going shopping, if they want to come in and talk about a situation at home or a situation at work, I listen. Same way I treat parenting. If you listen to the small things, they're going to trust you with the big things. They're going to feel comfortable to come to you with the big things, right? And I also create an environment where I check in with my staff. As busy as I am and overseeing so many different areas, I meet with my staff either weekly, monthly, or quarterly. My staff has time with me. They get designated however long, a half an hour or whatever like that. They get designated that time and they meet with me, especially now more than ever with this COVID. I make myself more readily available for all of my staff members. And as a statewide clinical director, I oversee so many people, so many different locations. They just know to just message me, and I make time. I put it on my calendar, again, because the calendar is key. I put it on my calendar, and I set aside that time to just meet with them and talk with them. Because we're so isolated right now with everything that's going on, and so many different things are happening internally at home that we don't always get to realize. So I make sure that I make time to see my staff, to let them know that I care. Happy birthday. Hey, I know that your son had surgery last week. How did it go? Or just the small things, just remembering about them. Oh, I see you got a new haircut. Little things like that is letting them know that you care about them, even in the smallest of ways. And we all want to feel that. We all want to feel validated in that area, you know, as people. And that's what we need to see. And when we say employees, it's one thing, and say my staff, but I always let them know that I care about them as a person. So before I even discuss business, I talk to them as their people and ask about their life and how things have been going. And that's before I even get down to business, because I always let them know that I care about them as a person, way before I care about you about being my staff or employee. That is irrelevant to me majority of the time, because if you are okay as a person, then I know you're going to be okay as an employee, because I can teach you the employee things. We can work on those training things. But if you're not okay as a person, then I cannot expect you to be okay as an employee. And that's just not fair. Telling someone to leave whatever happens at the door is not possible. It's not humane. And for me as a supervisor, I never tell any of my staff to do that. So if I'm noticing that something is happening with them, I go in and check in with them. Hey, how's everything going? You know, are you feeling okay? Something seems a little off today. Is everything going on? Oh, you know, this is happening at home, or this is going on. Okay, and I check in with them, because it's inhumane to tell them to leave it at the door. And how could you do that? It's not possible. I can't always do that. I try to, right? But you can't always do that. Same thing, sometimes work spills over into the home life. So it's being able to talk to them and look at them as a person. And when you see them as a person before you see them as your employee and as your staff member, then you're going to have more success in your job, because your company, because your staff members are going to want to do more for you, because they know that you care about them, and they in turn are going to care about you, and they're going to worry about you and making sure that you're okay. So they're not going to want to do anything in the business to mess up you. So caring about them first as a person is caring about their mental health and checking in with them. A lot of companies are investing in EAP, which is Employee Assistance Program. Utilize that. I tell my staff all the time to check in with that. And if not, you can have free mental health sessions with me. Let's sit down and talk. I'm not gonna give you a whole hour because you're not paying me, so you can get about 30 minutes. Let's spill it out in 30 minutes. You got that. So being able to have that environment for them and look at them as a person, not just your employee.
Again, you have given us so much value, Suma. We want to thank you for joining us. We want to thank you for your time. I want to give people a few more moments. If you have questions and you're with us on Facebook, drop those questions. If you're with us here, you can drop your questions as well. But I want to give Summer some time to chime in and ask any questions that you have, or just provide, major takeaway from this conversation. Suma, again, you have shed light on this really important conversation around mental health and entrepreneurship. And this is the way we said we're kicking off this next series. Again, we decided to put together the boot camp, as we said earlier, for business leaders, for entrepreneurs, for nonprofit founders. But we did so in the middle of COVID. Part of that reason was because we couldn't have our annual conference. That was like a small fraction of why we did that. However, it turned into something so much larger than that. Again, we ended up having to cancel all of our events, not just us, but several other business leaders. Summer and Comerica, the events that they were part of, that they sponsored, that they participated in, those events did not happen last year simply because of COVID. And lives were changed, period. And so we wanted to provide a solution, and the boot camp became just that. And so we thank you. We thank you for taking the time because we know that mental health has been a big thing. It has been taboo. It's something that people, specifically business owners, have not been acknowledging, and they have been reaching burnout in silence. They've been battling with depression and anxiety in silence. They don't know where to go and where to find these resources. If you have one right in front of you, I think my face is up, but nonetheless, you somewhere here you have one, at least one. And I know in my network I have a ton of resources, because you need to go to different people for different things. But we had to have this conversation. Don't stay silent. Yes, get a journal, I will tell you that, but don't stay silent. You do not have to continue to operate in a silo. And so for that, Suma, again, we thank you. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let Summer, her mic is off and she's ready to say something. So, Summer, take it away.
No, you know what? I was just sitting there listening, and I am one of those women that wear every hat she could find. Good, bad, ugly, and different. I got all the hats. And I have had to kind of look at my life and say, okay, Summer, what can fit, what can't fit? And I will always fit no matter what. And that's kind of the thing that I needed to make sure before I moved on. And this was years ago, but this is what I needed to do in order to succeed. And I will tell you, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a career-minded woman, as you know, as a daughter, as a pastor, as everything that you can think of, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't put myself first 10, 20 years ago. If you look back and say, okay, Summer, at this timeline, in this specific time and space, you chose a year, and it took me a year to actually about 2 years to kind of sit back, reflect, take pressure off myself, and realize where my goals were and how I was going to integrate it without burnout. That was the thing. And then without burnout included that structure of support. I couldn't be where I am today without a mentor, without someone who listened to me, without therapy. And everybody needs therapy. I don't care who you are. Everyone needs that person that sits there and listens to what you have to say without judgment. And if you don't have that with friends, if you don't have that with family, then you definitely take advantage of it in any type of mental health. And if you do have a journal or diary, you will see the difference from when you talk about it and when you understand those triggers and what spaces you can go in and what spaces you can't go into, and you'll see that change. And with that change, you'll be able to affect others. And when you're affecting others, they'll come back to you, and you don't know you're affecting others until they tell you that you've affected them and that you've made a positive impact in their life based on maybe a stories that you've shared or the work that you do. But that's what will motivate you to continue to self-care, to stay ready. And you know what? And I do a lot of that, and it's the weirdest thing, but I plan a vacation. And with that vacation, I know I'll have a mental break for a certain amount of time and nothing comes with me. And everybody knows I'm horrible with social media. Like for half of the program, I couldn't even find where we were on Facebook. But I mean, so my phone will go with me, but doesn't mean social media is going, because I don't know how that works all the time. But it's just mental care, self-care, self-awareness. It all correlates with success. And I'm not talking about monetary. I'm just talking about success as a human being. You cannot be successful unless you are giving that positive influence out. So in order for that positivity to come out, you have to take care of yourself. And that goes with if you are in the corporate world, because that's kind of the platform that I speak from, is being corporate. Everybody's had those bosses that say, leave it at the door. And Suma, thank you for mentioning that, because a lot of people kind of just reiterate what they heard for years and years and years. And unfortunately, a lot of it came from men or strong-minded women who wanted to make a name for themselves. Leave that at the door. Work is work. But guess who you remember? When I'm at the age I'm at, I'm 40, and I look back and I'm just like, the people that I connected the best with, my mentors, my managers, were the people who listened to me, whether it was just for a second or whether it was for them actually asking me how my day was. And not having a glazed look of just, this is a way to ask you, the morning coffee type time. This is an actual reason I'm concerned. How is your day? And the people and the company and the corporations, now I'm in a place where I can be choosy. I can be picky on who I work with and how I work with them. I want them to understand how my day is. And I want it to make sense to them. Because if my day is going fantastic, your day is going to go fantastic. But if you help me and improve my day, I will help you and improve your day. And it's vice versa. I ask my people, hey, how's your day going? How are you feeling? Is there anything I can do? Because in the positions that we have of the placements that we're in, the higher we go, the more of a servant we are. So we have to remember to ask and support the people who are in turn trying to support us. And if they're not in the strength or the position to support, then we need to be there to support them. So that's just what I have to say. I'm certainly not a mental health physician, and I just know, we all going through some stuff. So how you come out of it is going to be the determining factor of how, you don't want to go back through it. So that's just my two cents. Thank you, Sima, though, for all that you've mentioned, and it's extremely important.
Absolutely. You guys created such an important segment here, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present on this. And I love talking about mental health, and as you can tell, is my extreme passion. But helping people to understand how it impacts different areas of their lives is another part of my passion. A lot of people don't see mental health in various areas, and never would have thought that mental health would be something that would be in entrepreneurship, right? That you can correlate the two together. How would that look like? But it can, and it can be possible. So understanding how that would look like for you and playing that role is what's key and what's important. And you mentioned some really good areas that you had to take time to learn yourself and to see how to put yourself first. Just like you're being in an airplane and the plane is going down, they always tell you, put your mask on first before you help anybody else. Yeah. Because you can't help anyone else unless you're taken care of. You can't help anybody else on that plane if your mask is not taken care of. It doesn't work that way. So that is a key thing that you need to be able to understand for yourself. And just like you said, everyone needs therapy. Margot said in the beginning of the segment that therapists have therapists. We do. Because imagine all the stuff that we hear every single day and go through, will lose our minds, right? The burnout and the ability to be in this field is very, very short because of the things that we go through and that we're aware of. So we also have to take care of ourselves and go to therapy as well and do our own check-ins. I don't go to therapy every single week, but I go do my little check-in, like, whoa, listen, it's been a month, let me tell you. And I go have someone that I can talk to, because just like with getting your car oils changed, going to put gas in your car, maintenance, checking your spark plugs changed, therapy is the same kind of thing. It is a mental check-in. You're required to do that for your car. You're required to do that for your mental health well-being. It is a requirement. If you operate under that same capacity and that same thought process, then your mental health will be well taken care of. So that's my gem.
I think that's super, super key. And we're ending this segment on such a high note where, number one, we've had the discussion on how to eradicate burnout, and we ended the conversation on normalizing therapy. This is key. This is super solid. And once again, Sumo, we are so grateful to have had you with us for this particular segment. And I'm really looking forward to everything that's going to continue to come through these series. I'll give you a sneak peek for those of you who are watching the replay and catching, those of you who are with us live. The additional conversations we're going to be having through this boot camp. We're going to be talking about business certification specifically for women-owned businesses. We're going to be talking about financial laws. We're going to be talking about money momentum. We're going to be talking about upscale marketing. We're going to be talking about SEO. We're going to be talking about branding, launch strategy, as well as author alignment. So if you've ever wanted to write a book, if there's a book burning inside of you waiting to get out, keep coming to these segments, because we have so much goodness and knowledge and wisdom, advice, and tangible strategies that you can apply to your life and your business right now. So again, Suma, we are so grateful for you. We thank you so much for joining us. And we are just looking forward to everything that's going to be coming through you by staying connected. And so I posted it in the chat, both on Facebook as well as here in the group chat. But how can we get connected with you? How can we start blowing you up? Getting on your calendar that's scheduled months in advance and filling up your pockets as well, right? Because we talked about entrepreneurship. So let's talk about that too.
Yes. So you can find me on the main social media platforms. I'm on Instagram. You can schedule through there. I am also on Psychology Today. You can also email me through there. You can call me right from the website. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And you can also go through my website, the License Connections with an S.com, and you can send me a memo. You can book through there as well too. You will have access to my schedule, and you can see exactly what's going on there. You can see all the services that I offer, and you can book a consultation with me at that time. So you can find me on just about everything from there. LinkedIn, all of that. So yes.
I love it. Well, everyone, Summer, and I are going to take one more quick picture before we go. And then we are going to just close out for this particular segment. So thank you all for joining us. And we are so looking forward to having you through the rest of this series. So if you want to stay and take a picture with us, you can. But Summer, get ready, ladies. Get ready. All right. I just brought up the chat. Hold on. Let me get my whole life together, y'all. 1, 2, 3. I'll let you take your Summer. Go ahead.
I did.
Oh, Lord. I was like, hopefully my teeth weren't showing. Oh, I got my ring right here. Give me a second. 1, 2, 3. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us for this segment of the Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp series. Today, we had a conversation on mental health and entrepreneurship. Until next time, let's continue making an impact. Blessings.